Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Adventures. And today we're going to be doing another episode of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look through all different mods people have been making. So now we're on part 17, so we're really making progress, and I've got a few, like 5 other parts that I got to get through hopefully before this next updates come, which I believe will be in June, July. So I want to make sure I get that done. But enough of that. We're going to be starting with our first species. This one is done by the ever-present, ever-creating Leaf. We have got the Bolivian grey Titi monkey, or the white-eared Titi, or if I'm just called the Bolivian Titi. Look at this cool monkey. He's a good boy. So, this guy's a medium-sized monkey, so they reach probably about 311 millimeters to 340 millimeters head to body length, and range between 800 to 1200 grams. These guys are a small, medium-sized monkey. They are found around eastern Bolivia, as I mentioned in the name, but also an area of western Brazil. And they have this obviously grey back and orange underside you can see here. You can see the orange of the back here and the body. So these guys have these also quite distinctive ear tufts as well, as you can see here, and they are very omnivorous. They tend to eat really whatever they can, fruits, other plant material, and vertebrates, and are preyed upon by things like raptors, and felids have been known to kill them, so they get killed by birds of prey and things like that. These guys also are monogamous, so they're mate for life and hang out in small groups. They have 2 to 7 members and consisting of pairs and their offspring. And these guys have a home range between 1.5 to 14 hectares or 1.2 to 34 acres, and have a complex range of sounds that they use to maintain their territories. And these guys have been known to live for over 25 years in captivity, which is pretty cool. So as I mentioned, they're omnivorous. They kind of just eat whatever they can. They've been mostly eat leaves and protein-rich young leaves and buds, so they spend a lot of their time trying to digest that cellulose. So they kind of just do what they want. They also eat ants, moths, butterflies in their cocoons, caterpillars, things like that, spiders, even flying insects. And these guys luckily are considered least concern, so they are not considered threatened because they're very adaptable, as I mentioned, by having an omnivorous diet and being able to live in grassland and forest habitats. They're not too much at risk, and pretty wide range across Bolivia and Brazil. But despite having a decreasing population, it's not to be, which is obviously not a good thing, but it's probably not enough to raise any alarms for conservation. So really this species really just needs to be monitored and make sure that they're not declining at a steep rate. But the main issue of these guys, and this affects a bunch of animals that live in this area of Bolivia and Brazil, is deforestation and habitat loss. A lot of these areas where these guys, especially the Santa Cruz de la Sierra, where they still survive in the city limits of that, but they have really been affected by farmland and rural areas, and they can find trouble surviving between the forest fragments. So, as I mentioned, they're not as critically endangered as a lot of other species from the Amazon, but they're still at risk. So yeah, at least they have protected reserves within their range where these guys will be fine. Wonderful animals. I really do like this design. Really interesting, like the big bald head, so I believe that's a female. Looks like a young male, adult, slightly bigger. Let's see if we can find a baby. Look at the baby. Yeah. Look at the baby. That's not what I wanted to do. Stop moving around so fast. Look at the baby. He's a cutie. Little cutie. Look at the little hands. Cute little monkey. I like. Good boy. So now we're going to be moving on to the next animal. This is also done by Leaf, of course. As I mentioned, he's ever present and all-knowing. Forever here. We are looking at the black howler monkey. So if you guys know your howler monkeys, they're very famous for their big howl that they make through the jungle and can be heard from miles and miles away. So also known as the black and gold howler monkey, is a species of howler monkey, or which is a New World monkey, which is found in the Americas, mainly northern Argentina, eastern Bolivia, and eastern and southern Brazil and Paraguay. So the most southern ranging member of their genus, and there are variations where you can see the adult females have like this. You can see the males obviously have this black, the females have like this yellowish color, and the males are kind of, the juveniles are in between. So these guys live in groups of up to 3 to 19 individuals, usually in 7 to 9. That's like the average. And the sex ratio is usually 1 to 3 males for every 7 to 9 females within this group to obviously reduce competition and obviously within the group as well. And mainly named for their vocalizations, as I mentioned, these guys make these very deep howls, which is part of like the dawn chorus that they use to mark their territories, and they can sound like a roar, and they can be heard from. They announce their position to avoid conflict with other groups. So it's kind of saying, "Hey, I'm here. Don't come near me. This is my area. I'm here. Don't come mess with here because I got my group here." And these can be heard from up to 5 kilometers away. So that's pretty big. So these guys commonly sleep and rest up to 70% of the day, and making it one of the least active monkeys in the New World, which is quite funny. And they're frugivores or foliivores. They eat mostly leaves and occasionally fruit and figs. And they usually prefer walking and climbing to running and leaping on the branches rather than running and leaping on branches. They tend to climb and walk in on them. Wonderful. We'll have a look at the female while we're here. So other than that, they will use their prehensile tail to act as like a fifth limb, like a lot of other monkeys do. They will use that to better be able to hang and walk through the branches. And because of this limb structure, that makes their terrestrial movement awkward and spend most of the time in the trees and only come down for water during dry spells. So they try to avoid coming onto the ground as much as possible, and that makes them vulnerable to predators. Otherwise, they will drink water from their hands by wetting their hands on moist leaves or licking the water off the hands. And they live in captivity about up to 20 years, but most commonly in the wild they live up to 15. And in Argentina, they're actually kept as pets because of their general nature. Look at this, having a nice, fun time. Pretty cute. Let's have a look at the babies. He's quite cute. So that's another really interesting mod. Quite cool. Wonderful bunch of animals. So now we're going to move on to the next one. We have got this is a subspecies this time. This is by Haruka Ichinos, or how you pronounce it, or Ishido, or however. This is the Quinlan Panda. So, if you guys know your regular panda, the giant panda, this is the first subspecies described of the giant panda. This was discovered in the 1960s, but was not recognized until 2005 as a separate subspecies. So, these guys mainly differ from the more common. They can't really call pandas common, but the more common black dwarf is that they have these kind of lighter coloration. They're much more like light brown or dark brown rather than white and black fur, and have smaller overall in size. And they usually have their eye spots over in the lower lip as well, and rancid around the eyes, and their brown pandas are very rare. So this subspecies is restricted to the Quinlan Mountains at elevations between 1,300 and 3,000 meters, and its coloration is believed to be a process of inbreeding, since these guys were closed off by the mountain range from other populations of giant pandas. These guys kind of lost that variation, and since there was a lot of inbreeding, they might have led to this preservation of this like lighter morph. The genes would have been preserved in the population, which is pretty interesting. There's estimated to be about 1,800 of these guys living in the wild, and believe it or not, in 1989, there was a female captured and brought to the Zhejiang Zoo and mated with a regular giant panda. This panda's offspring was black and white, but actually became brownish as it aged. And according to the report, she gave birth to 3 cubs, who died shortly after being born, sadly, and the mother, named Dan, died in 2000, so that sucks. But due to the Quinlan subspecies being restricted in its range, they are at risk from toxins in their bamboo diet, and it's not really known and understand, but there is things like heavy metals from atmospheric deposition, and this is a big issue in China because pollution, especially air pollution, has been an issue in China, and that does affect these animals. And these guys have a survival rate of 5 to 20 years, and the most common dental abnormality, because that's very important to their survival, they have fractures in their teeth and can affect the survival rate of these pandas. Oh, look at that, isn't that cute? Give a little lick. Adorable. So this is the Quinlan Panda. cool animal doing its thing. So now, we're moving on to the next animal. We have got the common waterbuck by Bongo Hardwood. I believe that's their name, Bongo Hardwood or Bango Hardwood. So this is a pretty wonderful animal. So these guys are a large antelope found from sub-Saharan Africa. They are in the genus Cobus and Bovidae, so they're related to other antelopes, of course. There's believed to be about 13 subspecies within 2 groups. The common or Ellipsipirum waterbuck or the defasa waterbuck. So usually these have recently kind of been split into 2 species. So there's like the common waterbuck and the defasa waterbuck. This is obviously the common waterbuck. And they have a head to body ratio length of typically between 177 to 235 centimeters, with a typical height at the shoulder of 120 to 136 centimeters. And these guys are also sexual dimorphic, with males being taller and heavier than females. So the males will usually reach 127 meters at the shoulder, while the females will reach 119. And males typically weigh a lot more. They get between 198 and 262 kilos, and the females will get between 161 and 214 kilos. So they are pretty big antelopes. And their coat usually varies from this brown to grey color and have these long spiral horns that are really only found in the males, as you can see here. So these guys are pretty sedentary in nature. They tend to form herds of about 6 to 30 individuals, and these groups either consist of nursery herds with females and their offspring, or bachelor herds of just males. Males start to show this territorial behavior from the age of 5 years, but it's most dominant from 6 to 9 years old. The waterbuck cannot tolerate dehydration in hot weather, so they inhabit areas close to water sources, hence the name waterbuck. And predominantly a grazer, these guys are mostly found on the grasslands, but they're always found close to water. And the equatorial range's breeding takes throughout the year, but births reach their peak in the breeding season. The gestational period for this animal lasts for about 6 to 8 months, and they give birth to a single calf. And we'll have a look at the calf here. Have a look at this cutie. Wonderful little animal. So these guys inhabit scrub and savanna areas along woodlands and valleys and such, and due to their requirement of grassland and water, they have a very sparse ecotype distribution, or ecotone really. So they have very wide but sporadic ranges since they like these habitats. And they are considered least concern, luckily. But though the most common waterbuck is the least concern, while the devasa waterbuck is considered near threatened, because the population trend has been downwards, and it's mainly due to a lot of issues that are happening to other animals in Africa, such as, and even globally, as is poaching, habitat loss, and competition with livestock. Yeah, I think these are a wonderful group. Plus, they have a very restricted habitat, which is common, but it's harder for them to move if they have their reliability to water. And a really nice animal, I like this female. Look how the fur came out on this one. Really wonderful animal. I think it's a good boy. So now we're going to move on to the next animal. We have got... This one has been done by Phonetic and Gyro Pizza, and also the ever-present Leaf. We have got the Chinese alligator. So I have mentioned this guy in an episode before, but this just looks so much better than that one. A real nice Chinese alligator. So the Chinese alligator, also known as the muddy dragon or the Yangtze alligator, is a crocodile endemic to China, so it's only found in China, and the American alligator is the only living species in its genus, along with this guy. So there's the Yangtze or Chinese alligator and the American alligator. These guys are much smaller than American alligators. They get between 1.5 and 2.1 meters long and weigh between 36 and 45 kilograms as adults. They brumate in the winter by digging burrows, and they are nocturnal in summer. Mating occurs in early spring, with females most commonly producing 20 to 30 eggs, which are smaller than those of any other crocodilian. This species is also an opportunistic feeder that eats pretty much whatever it can, fish, invertebrates, really whatever, but that's what they mainly eat. They'll also eat large animals if they get the chance. They're also a very vocal species. Males will bellow during the mating season, and youngs will vocalize to communicate with their parents, like little chirps. and other juveniles as well. There's captive specimens of these guys that have reached about 70 years old, but the wild specimens can live up to over 50. So these guys, they are exclusive to freshwater, like of course American alligators. They're really only found in freshwater. And they used to be found pretty much all over the place in China. Now they're restricted to really only 6 places in the wild, 6 counties and provinces, and occur between like a total area of 5 square kilometers, and have been reported to really occurred areas like Jiangsu and Zhejiang, I believe actually, and Xinjiang, but they're unknown if they still live there. So the reason for this downward trend is that they really have been on the decline since 5000 BC. This is when human civilization impacted a lot of species across China, including elephants, rhinos, obviously these alligators, since they're pretty slow breeding compared to other alligators. They were pretty much wiped out. They usually lived in the lower Langshi area pretty much, and then this is one of the first places in the world that developed rice farming. So what happened is that a lot of these guys' habitats got taken, and this means they really just got more and more restricted. Even into the 1950s, they lived in the southern area of the Yangtze and a couple other places. And then their population was pretty much in the 1950s by the 1970s, their population was really only about 1,000. And then their population in 1998 was the lowest it had ever been, and their population lived in a small pond in the Yangtze, which held 11 alligators. So that's not good. And in 1990, they estimated 150 individuals were left in the wild, and the population was at least 130 in 2001. And then they had wandered to suitable habitat, but luckily, these guys had been bred in captivity a lot, so there's believed to be about 20,000 in captivity, but the wild population has really shrunken a lot. So, as 2018, their population is not considered to further decline, so there's believed to be about 300 of these guys living in the wild. And the reason for this decline, of course, is mainly the destruction of the mainland habitat, but also hunting of these guys because of that, but also have been lots of floods, and also rats, even sodium pentochlorophyte, which was used to kill snails, affected these guys and affected their air shells, similar to like DDT, I believe, or even just poisoning the alligators themselves. So yeah, not good, not good. But their class is endangered, but they are doing well in captivity at least. So as long as people in captivity, they're doing good. The wild, there's not too many of them. So it'd be really cool if we managed to introduce some of the captive specimens into wild populations and get the breeding back up. So that'd be awesome. Wonderful animal. You have a look at the babies. Look at this cutie. Wonderful little cutie. How can you not love the animals of Planet Zoo when they're this cute? Wonderful, incredible animals. So now let's keep going. So we've done the Yangtze alligator. Now we have got, by the ever-present Leaf again, and Bubblywums, which is a very, very great motto, we have got the striped hyena. Let's get it. There we are, striped hyena. So this is one of the 4 species of hyena. They're found native to North and Eastern Africa, the Middle East, the Caucasus, Central Asia, and India. They're listed as near threatened by the IUCN, and the global population is estimated to be under 10,000 individuals. That kind of sucks. And this continues to experience deliberate and incidental prosecution, which means that, along with the decrease in their prey base, this means they have come close to meeting the 10% decline over the next 3 generations. And they're also the national animal of Lebanon, which is pretty cool. They are the smallest of the true hyenas. So, true hyenas and remain many of their primitive but varied characteristics lost in those larger species. So this is like the only real smallest of the true hyenas. The Ada wolf's not considered really a true hyena. It's relative, but not true. These guys are primarily scavengers, but they have been known to kill their own prey, and they have been known to attack humans as well on rare occasions. They're also monogamous, which both male and females assisting in one another in raising cubs, and considered nocturnal, which means they usually only come out in complete darkness, and once the sunlight comes, they'll go back to their dens. So these guys are also pretty big. They can get between 22 and 55 kilos, averaging about 35 kilos, and body length ranges from 85 to 130 centimeters, not counting the tail of 25 and 40 centimeters. And as I mentioned, these guys are monogamous. The gestation period lasts between 90 and 91 days for these guys. And this shrub here, the cubs, let's find the cub. The cub should be over there. Let's look at this cub. There we are. Look at this cutie. So they're born with adult markings, and they have closed eyes and small ears. And this is a marked contrast to newborn spotted hyenas, which are born like almost fully developed, but they have like a uniform black coat. The eyes open about 5 to 7 days, 7 to 8 days after the cubs leave their dens. No, that's not wrong. That's not right, I said that wrong. So, after 7 to 8 days after being born, these guys will open their eyes, and after about a month, they'll leave their dens. Cubs usually weaned from their mother's milk at about 2 months old and are fed by both parents. And in autumn, the cubs are half the size of their parents. And in the wild, these animals can live to 12 years, but in captivity, they've been known to live up to 23. So as I mentioned, these guys are actually pretty prevalent in folklore as well. They've been mentioned in the Bible, I believe. And through the King James Version of the Bible, they're mentioned as kind of spectacle bird and things like that. It's pretty cool. It's cool to see how these guys have impacted history. I'll have a look at this cutie. Wonderful. And a big issue for these guys as well is they've been obviously preyed upon. They've actually been eaten by people too, and another thing about these guys is with their population decline, as they're considered near threatened, they're really just things like livestock. It's really a problem that's been happening across the world. Things with livestock and prosecution, kind of like you see similar coyotes are treated as like kind of wily animals, which is really not true. They are wonderful and great. So yeah, I love this guy. Really nice mod. Very cute. So let's move on to the next animal we've got here. We have got the Harbour Porpoise. So hopefully we didn't do this on purpose. It was a wonderful boy. So the Harbour Porpoise is one of the 7 porpoise species and one of the smallest marine mammals. And they stay close to coastal areas and estuaries. And these guys are a little smaller than other porpoises. They get to about 67 to 85 centimeters in length and weigh between 6.4 and 10 kilograms. Adults of both sexes grow to up to 1.4 to 1.9. That's the largest. And the maximum weight for these guys has been found 76 kilos compared to males 61. So females get slightly larger. So these guys are actually pretty widespread across the cooler coastal waters of North Atlantic, North Pacific, and the Black Sea. So they do have a pretty wide range. And there is a couple different subspecies, which believe that may be some sort of, maybe even species, though recent genetics evidence suggests that may be more complex as well. So the taxonomy on these guys is not final at all. So the global population is estimated to be at least 700,000, and there was a survey in the Atlantic region of Europe from Gibraltar and to Vestfjorden in Norway, and the population is about 476,000 harbour porpoises, making it the most abundant cetacean in the region along with common dolphins. So that's pretty good. So these guys prefer temperate and subantarctic waters where they hunt in fjords, bays, harbours, where they get their name, Harbour Porpoise. And they usually find squids, crustaceans, and tend to feed close to the sea bottom and waters less than 200 meters deep. So that's really where they try to hunt. They tend to be solitary foragers, but they do hunt in packs and herd fish together. Young porpoises need to consume about 7 to 8% of their weight daily to survive, which is approximately 7 kilos of fish. And these guys are also preyed upon by orcas and white sharks. And there was even believed to be local bottlenose dolphins attacking and killing harbour porpoises without eating them, and as they may have believed to be competition or decreased food supply. Grey seals have also been known to attack these guys, and they bite off chunks of fat as a high energy source. So these guys are relatively sedentary and do not really move much. Dives of about 220 meters of these guys have been reported, but dives usually last for 5 to 10 minutes. So the social life of the harbour porpoise is not well understood, as they're generally considered to be a solitary species, but they can be found in groups of up to 5 animals. The gestation for these guys is about 10 to 11 months, and most births occur late spring and summer. Calves are weaned from after 8 to 12 months, and the average lifespan is to 8 to 13 years, but maybe up to 20. So big threats to these guys is also hunting for their blubber, and even though they're pretty common still, they get hunted a lot for blubber. Interaction with fisheries, they often get caught as bycatch, which isn't the big issue. Overfishing, which reduces their prey numbers. Noise pollution and regular pollution of heavy metals and pesticides get into the animals, like mercury. Noise pollution is a big issue for these guys because large ships and oil platforms do really affect these guys because of the noise. And climate change is another big issue that's been considered, since the habitats that these guys live in, they like cooler habitats, and as the world gets warmer, it's not going to really help these guys. And they're not considered threatened, and their population is in the 100,000s at least. And they are considered least concern, but there is some populations that are considered, like the subspecies Relictica in the Black Sea, are considered endangered, but overall, they're doing quite well. Wonderful, wonderful animal. And now we've got our second to last animal going. So look, that one was done by bubblywums and leaf as well. And the next one is also done by bubblywums and leaf. So pretty much bubblywums and leaf have done these two. We've got the Pacific white-sided dolphin. So another wonderful animal. So these guys are an average-sized oceanic dolphin, which means they live out in the open ocean. They females weigh between 150, weigh up to 150, and males weigh up to 200 kilograms, with males reaching 2.5 meters long and females 2.3 meters long. So the Pacific white-sided dolphin is extremely active and mixes with other North Pacific cetacean species, and will readily approach boats since they're quite common in people. And they live in large groups that are common. Up to 90 individuals have been recorded, and also supergroups of more than 300. And their prey usually includes animals like cod, salmon, herring, squid, anchovies, and hake. So these guys are found in cool temperate waters of the North Pacific. Sightings go no further than the South China Sea on the western side of the Baja California Peninsula. Populations that may also be found in the Sea of Japan and the Sea of Kirsch. So they generally just live in that band, and their total population may be as many as 1 million. Although their habit of coming up to boats might be actually biasing that sampling, so there may be less than we think. So as I mentioned, these guys can live in groups of up to 10 to 100, and even supergroups of 300, and can be seen riding boats and live in very close-knit groups where they take care of other dolphins. And they develop ways of keeping in touch. They make unique and really whistles that kind of almost gives them their name, so each individual knows each other. And young will communicate by touching their flippers on adults as they swim beside them. So there's been a lot of study into dolphin communication, and this is kind of comes from bottlenose and Risso's dolphin as well. They can range differently, only different behavior. They can almost have different dialects and different behaviors based on kind of where they live, their habitats and such. Where's the other one? We'll have a look at this one as he swims around instead of just sitting at the top. So these guys are protected, at least. They often get caught in drift nets, though the estimated 50,000 to 89,000 individuals are killed over the 12 years to 1990. So that was between 1993 and 1988, I think, to 1990, or something like that. Don't question my maths, please. I'm not that good at it. So these guys were also killed each year by hunting drives, similar to, if you guys know, things like the sea drives where they'll take in dolphins and hunt them for food. And also they seem to be pretty popular in captivity, even though overshadowed by bottlenose dolphins. They're kept in submarine parks, and in captivity they tend to consume less food, and they tend to have other issues with captivity, since obviously having dolphins and other cetaceans in captivity is a very, very controversial thing. But these guys considerably might actually do okay. But that's the controversy that we don't need to get into. But that's still a wonderful dolphin. Let's have a look at the baby. Where's the baby? There's got to be the baby there. I think they're all going for a feed now. Look at this wonderful baby. Wonderful animal. Great animal. Impressive even. So now we've got our lucky last animal. This is by Nicholas Lion Rider Leaf, and the original model was done by Aurora Designs for Zoo Tycoon 2. We have got the short-finned pilot whale. So let's have a look at this wonderful animal. Great. So these guys are one of the two species of pilot whale. There's the short-finned pilot whale and the long-finned pilot whale. These guys have a worldwide distribution. Global population estimated to be 700,000, and there may be 3 or 4 distinct populations. 2 in the Pacific, 1 in the Atlantic, and 1 in the Indian Ocean. Even though their range is moving northward due to global warming and climate change. They get pretty big too. In the Pacific, the males will reach about 4 to 6 meters and females 3 to 5, and generally look like this. They have this very stocky build with a black to dark grey brown skin, and can be distinguished from the long fin pilot whale, obviously by they have much shorter fins. So it's kind of a good way to do it. They are pretty much consistently eat fast moving squid at depths of about 700 meters, but their maximum depth have been recorded up to 1,000 meters deep. So these guys are also a highly playful species. They and social. They live in pods of up to 10 to 30 individuals, and typically families. And they have been seen moving in groups up to several hundred. And they have, like, very similar to killer whales. They have like a matriarchal society, matrilineal, where the eldest female is kind of the big boss, and a sizable post-reductive lifespan. So these guys, the grandmothers, will hang around and help take care of the babies and stick out with the group, which is really cool. And these guys, as I mentioned, they're polyamorous, which means they mate with multiple females and do their own thing. Female pilot whales mature from 7 to 12 years old, and they'll start having calves every 5 to 8 years, and average about 4 to 5 calves during their lifetime. And the calves will suckle from their mothers for up to 2 years, a minimum of 2 years, but they will suckle up to 5 years, so I feel they like to hang on a little bit. They're very needy. And there's some evidence that they may continue to lactate up to 15 years after their calf was born. So that's pretty interesting. And the female usually stop reproducing up to age 40, even though their maximum lifespan exceeds 60 years old. So it's possible that they could be breeding after that. So big issues for these guys includes natural predators and strandings. These guys have been preyed upon by killer whales and white sharks. And the big issue with these guys is that they like to hang out together, so a lot of these big mass strandings that you see are pilot whales, and that could be done by noise pollution and by, like, there's been lots of, it's not just conspiracy, but this has been proven, like a lot of sonar tests that can cause these guys to beach, and it's very, very bad. Also, these guys are hunted a lot by people. They are often hunted by people as well in these similar drives to the Pacific Whitesided dolphin. Which sucks, and they get eaten by people. And also, they get caught a lot in bycatch, also gill nets, things like that, since they can't really sense them, which is a very common thing to these guys, unfortunately. Another really big issue for these guys is climate change, as they will shift northward through the... It's trying to shift northward as their habitat kind of moves up. Oh, they're going to have it eat now, which is quite funny. But luckily, these guys are considered data deficient because we don't know the issue, but hopefully there's more study on them. But as we mentioned, the population is believed to be about 700,000, so they aren't at risk of extinction anytime soon, but problems like climate change and stuff is really something that's probably going to affect them in the future, unfortunately. But, yeah. I think this is a good place to end the episode. We'll watch this guy a little bit more. I really love these mods. I love seeing, like, cetaceans. It's really weird to see them in the game, but they work too well almost. Other than having to come onto land, they do work very, very well, especially with the diving. It's a really wonderful model too. I love these pilot whales. I love their heads. They've got a really funny shape to them. Almost look like sperm whales. So I believe this would be a good place to end the episode. So, yeah. I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like and subscribe, always remember to click the little bell icon in the corner to make sure you get notified whenever I upload anything. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. You guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.